got a tinfoil hat on tight, chasing secrets deep into the night. Tiny tots tucked in beds of gold, unraveling whispers of stories untold. Space junk flying past her window pane, government plots driving her insane. What's hidden behind that iron door? Georgie seeks answers, always wants more. What is the government hiding in the dark? Mystery ships and clandestine punks. Georgie with the tinfoil hat won't yield. Truth in her heart, a mighty shield. Aliens in suits walking down the street, while Georgie's kids count sheep in their sleep. Vaults of secrets buried under stone. She won't stop till the truth is known. Satellite spies watching from the sky, Georgie's eyes reflecting every lie. With every clue she draws the line, piecing conspiracies one at a time. What is the government hiding in the dark? Mystery ships and clandestine punks. Georgie with the tinfoil hat won't yield. Truth in her heart, a mighty shield. What is the government hiding in the dark? Mystery ships and clandestine parks. Georgie with a tinfoil hat won't yield. Truth in her heart, a mighty shield.
Hey guys, we're back with part 2 of the MLK files. We ended off last week on page 17. And so let's get this pulled up and we will start off where we finished off last week. Back and complete the inquiry into the Bureau's pre-assassination relationship with Dr. King. Necessarily included again in the second stage of our review was the consideration of whether the FBI was in any way implicated in the number directly or indirectly. The task force made a particular point of looking at all the material in the FBI headquarters and field office files on the assassination investigation. The so-called Marting file, Marting being an acronym for Murder of King, the Martin Luther King Security File, 2, the Commonfield SCLC file, Commonfield being an acronym for Communist Infiltration, SCLC, the initials for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. 3, the file on communist influence and racial matters. 4, and the advisor to King file. 5, the Martin file was solely concerned with the murder investigation. The other 4 files provided a multifocal view. 1, FBI HQ 4438861. 2, FBI HQ 100-1 106670. 3. FBI HQ 100 438 794. 4. FBI HQ 100 442 529, and the predecessor file entitled Communist Party, USA. FBI HQ 100 3 116, and FBI HQ 100 392 452. Of the Bureau's intelligence and counterintelligence activities with respect to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the scheme of citation hereinafter used will be to minimize footnotes, place the source citation in the body of the writing, and designate headquarters files by HQ and number and serial, and field office files by city and number and serial, e.g., Memphis 44 1987 153. Exceptions to this scheme will be explained when made. The more voluminous of the pertinent files, in addition to the FBI headquarters files and the Washington field office files, were located in Memphis, Atlanta, Baltimore, Charlotte, Birmingham, New Orleans, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Kansas City, St. Louis, Omaha, Chicago, and Springfield, Illinois, Milwaukee, and New York. These were examined and placed by visits by task force personnel. The remaining files were Xeroxed and forwarded for review in Washington. Pertinent newspaper clipping files maintained by the department and by the Bureau and its field offices were scanned. In terms of papers examined, more than 200,000 entries, and many with numerous pages concerning both the murder investigation and the security investigation were covered. The 5 attorneys sitting together, originally and later as the work progressed. Splitting up two work singly or in teams together with research personnel, considered separate sections of each file, compiling notes, commenting on, or reading aloud, or noting for reading by all of the committees items of significance. Notes were taken when pertinent items were encountered on a serial-by-serial basis. Serials being each separate document entry of one or more pages in the file. The resulting books of notes were then reviewed and used in conjunction with the original source serials for the development of the statements of fact herein. In addition, witness interviews were reflected in contemporaneous memoranda, which aided in the development of facts presided. Selected portions of the so-called official and confidential files, which had been kept in the office of the late J. Edgar Hoover, some sensitive files in the office of a section chief in the FBI Security Division, and the files of former Assistant Director William Sullivan were reviewed. So also were the pertinent files of the Attorney General. Task force attorneys reviewed the transcripts of key intercepted telephone and microphone overheard conversations with Dr. King and his associates. These were spot checked for accuracy against tapes of those surveillance. A canvass of other investigative agencies was made to determine whether their files reflected that intelligence or counterintelligence requests had been upon them by the FBI in relation to Dr. King. This included the Defense Department, the State Department, the U.S. Information Agency, the CIA, the Secret Service, the Postal Inspection Service, the Internal Revenue Service's Intelligence Division, and the Treasury Department Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. The material turned up by these agencies was examined, albeit little of consequences was discovered. Relevant portions of the investigation reports of the Memphis Police Department on the King murder were Xeroxed and studied. In addition to official files, the task force personnel considered published material from the public sector dealing with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s and his assassination. Including in this category were a viewing of the Columbia Broadcasting System's program on the death of King in its series The Assassins, a national broadcasting company, Tomorrow program of April 4th, 1974, and pursuit of books and articles on the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and the role of the FBI in relation to the murder of Dr. See bibliography at AX6. This led to some valuable evidentiary material, principally the oral and written statements of James Earl Ray, which was used to buttress the reconstruction of the facts of the murder and of the FBI investigation. Some 30 interviews were conducted, principally in the assassination phase task force study. They were helpful in supplementing the results of interviews done during the murder investigation. During the review of the Memphis field office files, an on-site inspection of the crime scene was conducted and the exhibits in the office of the clerk of the county court for Shelby County, Tennessee were examined. The assassination investigation. 8. Events surrounding April 4th, 1968. One, the Poor People's Campaign. To understand the movements of Dr. King during this critical period, it is necessary to briefly discuss the Poor People's Campaign, POCAM, originally called the Washington Spring Project, in which he and the SCLC were involved. POCAM was scheduled to begin the first week of April 1968 and involved recruiting some 3,000 poor unemployed blacks from 16 localities in the United States for the purpose of going to Washington, D.C. and petitioning the government to improve their economic status. HQ 157-8428-51. The plan was to camp on the Washington Monument plan was to camp on the Washington Monument or Lincoln Memorial Grounds. HQ 157-8428-132. During the first and second weeks, demands would be made of congressmen and heads of departments, such as the Secretary of Labor, if the demands were not met. Nonviolent demonstrations were to be conducted. HQ 157-8428-109. Dr. King's planned travel schedule for February and March included trips to 9 major cities and visits to various points in Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia. By mid-February, Dr. King had become discouraged with the lack of progress in recruiting and training demonstrators. During this low point in the POCAM, Dr. King was persuaded to alter his plans to go to Memphis, Tennessee, in support of the strike involving the city's sanitation workers. Number 2, Memphis sanitation workers strike. On February 12, 1968, approximately 1,000 sanitation workers employed by the city of Memphis called a wildcat strike. The strikers were represented by Local 1733 of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees who demanded exclusive recognition of the union as bargaining agent, setting up grievance procedures, wage improvements, payroll deduction of union dues, and a promotion system, as well as pensions, hospitalization, and life insurance programs. The NAACP intervened in the strike because all of the sanitation workers, excluding drivers, were black. A militant young black power group known as the Invaders was seemingly interested in the strike. The group consisted of about 15 members, mostly high school dropouts, and was a cell of larger group known as Black Organizing Power (BOP), headed by Charles L. Kabosh and John B. Smith. The alleged purpose of BOP was to stimulate a sense of black identity, black pride, and black consciousness in young blacks. The strikers was also supported by a group of black ministers connected with the Memphis Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance, who adopted the name COME, COME, Community on the Move for Equality. It was members of this group that were instrumental in bringing Dr. King to Memphis on March 3, 1968. The Reverend James M. Lawson, Jr., pastor of the Centenary Methodist Church, Memphis, and member of COME, stated on a television program, WHBQ-TV, that he wanted to bring Dr. King and other heads of civil rights organizations to Memphis in an effort to unify the entire black community behind the demands of the strikers. The intervention of these various black community organizations caused the city of Memphis to be concerned about the racial overtones of the strike and the possibility of violence. Dr. King made his first visit to Memphis in support of the strike on the night of March 18, 1968. On that occasion, in addressing an estimated crowd of 9,000 to 12,000 people at a rally sponsored by COME at the Mason Temple, he called for a general protest day on March 22, 1968. All blacks were asked not to go to work or school on that day and were urged to participate in a massive downtown march. Dr. King and his party stayed at the Lorraine Motel at 406 Mulberry Street on the night of March 18, 1968, and left Memphis shortly before noon on March 19, 1968. Ostensibly to go to the state of Mississippi in connection with Pocam. The city of Memphis was virtually paralyzed by a 16-inch snowfall on March 22, 1968, resulting in postponement of the planned mass march to March 28, 1968. Dr. King returned to Memphis on the 28th, arriving at the airport approximately 10:22 a.m. By that time, approximately 5,000 to 6,000 people, about half of whom were of school age, had congregated at the Claiborne Temple, located at 280 Hernando Street, for the start of the march. According to the plan of the march, the sanitation workers were in front, with the remainder of the people following behind. The march was to proceed north on Hernando to Beale Street, thence west on Beale Street to Main Street, and north on Main Street to City Hall. The march got underway at approximately 11 a.m. and had proceeded to Hernando and Beale before it was joined by Dr. King. When the front of the march, led by Dr. King, reached Main Street, teenagers and young adults at the rear of the march near 3rd and Beale, 2 blocks from the front of the march, ripped the signs off their poles and began breaking store windows and looting. Mass confusion developed and the police moved in to quell disturbance. The disruption of the march caused Dr. King's aides to commandeer an automobile, and Dr. King and his party were escorted by police to the Rivermont Hotel, operated by Holiday Inns of America. Dr. King left the march at 11:15 a.m. and checked into the Rivermont Hotel at 11:24 a.m., where he stayed until March 29, 1968. Dr. King and his party were scheduled to return to Atlanta on March 28th at 9:05 p.m. via Eastern Airlines and were scheduled to leave Atlanta the morning of March 29th for Baltimore, thus remaining in Memphis on the night of the 28th was a change in plan. The city ordered a 7 p.m. curfew, and approximately 35 members of the Tennessee National Guard were called out to end the violence. During the disturbance, 4 blacks were shot, one fatality. Approximately 150 fires were set, and over 300 persons were arrested. Approximately 1% of the marchers engaged in looting and violence, and many of these were people who were criminally inclined and who had been in previous trouble. The March 29, 1958 issue of the Memphis Commercial Appeal reported that many of the looters and window breakers were Black Power advocates and that several wore jackets of the invaders. However, other sources, including Lieutenant E.H. Arkin of the Memphis Police Department, indicated that many high school age students had put the word invaders on their jackets for effect and were not necessarily affiliated with the BOP movement. The violence and disruption of the march was a great concern to Dr. King because of the possible effects they might have on the planned camp. Therefore, he vowed to return to Memphis and demonstrate that he had not lost his effectiveness in leading nonviolent marches. Dr. King, together with his SCLC staff, returned to Memphis on April 3, 1968 at 10:33 a.m. After a press conference at the airport, the group proceeded to the Lorraine Motel, arriving there at approximately 11:20 a.m. At about 12:05 p.m., Dr. King left the Lorraine Motel for a meeting at the Sanitary Methodist Church. Security and surveillance reps of GP Times Inspector Memphis Police Department dated July 17, 1968. Dr. King announced at this meeting that his purpose in returning to Memphis was to lead a mass march on April 8, 1968. However, on April 3, 1968, United States District Court Judge Bailey Brown issued a temporary restraining order against further marches in Memphis. Dr. King returned to the Lorraine Motel at 2:25 p.m. and sometime that afternoon, federal marshals served him and his aide with the restraining order. At approximately 4 p.m., Dr. King and the SCLC staff met with the BOP group, at which time Charles Cabbage requested money to institute BOP plans to start a libertarian school and a black co-op. Dr. King agreed to use his influence to secure funds for BOP, and Reverend Andrew Young agreed to help write up a plan. It is believed these concessions were made to BOP in order to keep them in line and prevent them from following a violent pattern. On the night of April 3, 1968, Dr. King spoke to approximately 2,000 persons at the Mason Temple. He emphasized that the scheduled mass march must be held on April 8, 1968 to refocus attention on the 8-week-old sanitation worker strike. After the speech, Solomon Jones Jr., serving as Dr. King's chauffeur, drove him back to the Lorraine Motel. Dr. King told Jones to report back on Thursday morning, April 4th, at 8:30 a.m. because he had to appear in court in connection with the restraining order. Okay, guys, we are on page 30, and with that, let me write that down. So guys, make sure you leave in the comments what you think so far about what we have read in part 1 and part 2. And make sure you like and subscribe for part 3 and so much more content. And with that, guys, remember, you are one of a kind and never let anyone dim your light.
Georgie's gotta go for now. She's got a role to play. Kids are calling, life's a sprawling, never a dull day. She loves all her subscribers, each and every one. But mom, life's calling louder till the setting sun. Goodbye for now, dear friends, till we meet again. Georgie's heart is full of love for every message sent. You're one of a kind, don't let them dim your light. She'll be back real soon, till then, good night. In the quiet of the evening, when the kids are fast asleep, Georgie reads your messages, a treasure she'll keep. Though she's busy now, her mind's on you all, wondering about your days and nights as the raindrops fall. Goodbye for now, dear friends, till we meet again. Georgie's heart is full of love for every message sent. You're one of a kind, don't let them dim your light. She'll be back real soon, till then, good night. Mom's life is a journey,